have one more reader for you. And we're so excited. It's their first time at Cliterary Salon, too. They run the fabulous and free series Tales from Queer Mountain, which is in New York City, Austin, and now in Oakland. It's a free show that is monthly and that you should absolutely go to. They're a stand-up comedian and an essayist, and they have some fresh fucking shoes on.
Yay!
I have also written a haiku about them.
Yay!
Heart, queer royalty, bow before them, heads low. We are not worthy. Micheal, Foulk.
I'm for sure a queer peasant. So they're just new shoes. This is so lovely and nerve-wracking. I normally do like stand up and then I write. And my writing is like much more serious, and then my stand-up is like really dumb. And I don't normally perform my writing, so bear with me. And thank you for sharing space with me. Cool. So this essay is called Good Bones, which was not the initial title, and at the end of it I'll tell you what the title was that I was told wouldn't work. From an early age, I was scared of my body, and I was terrified of penetrative sex. Honestly, all bodies, but especially mine, seemed haunted. My desires were, in my opinion, creepy, and perplexed me throughout my adolescence. Like, I was straight up frightened. Like, we traced the call, and it's coming from inside your bodies. When I was in middle school, I became convinced that I was possessed by some sort of malevolent creature from another realm. I cycled through all the possible demons and spirits who might be making a home out of my body. I would pore over books on mythology and religious iconography in my suburban Texas town's Round Rock Public Library on Main Street, attempting to diagnose and identify the unwelcome squatter. This particular train of inquiry would only last a short while, but my body and what it wanted would continue to confuse me well into adulthood. My issues with sex weren't for lack of interest, trust me. I was obsessed with the concept, but the whole to-do of it sort of disarmed me. Later in life, when I would try to submit myself to a sexual partner, my body would get all finicky and uncooperative, like a water hose left too long with a kink in it. Nothing would work right. Every permutation of sex felt somehow wrong and quite literally impossible. No one I knew had been able to teach me anything about the kind of sex that I wanted to have. In fact, any and all information on gay sex had seemingly been erased from all the books where I grew up. Little southern towns have a way of maintaining the whole extended moratorium on sodomy and all. I remember cherishing any sort of subversive media I could get my hands on. At 14, I thought XY Magazine was like a radical piece of homosexual propaganda. And I was shocked that it was available at my local Hastings. When I was finally able to dial up, download pornographic photos, I stored them on floppy disks. 6 or 7 low-res photos fit on each. And I hid them in a Connect box at the bottom. With a pack of cigarettes and some old coins that my grandfather had given. Fetish objects, really. When I first came out, I included a lot of caveats to my new identity. I swore up and down that I would never engage in penetrative sex on either end of the equation. I was gonna keep it Christian. You know, like Jesus and the apostles. Like lots of mouth stuff, but you know, they were just friends. So important for me to place my queerness as close as possible to the heteronormative ideal as I could. I pulled that whole I'm gay, but like that doesn't have to define me shtick. In my 20s, I had partners and I explored sex more, but every time it came to my body, to my penetration, I would lock up again. My defenses still engaged, I was unable to ever submit or participate. My brain, or at least part of it, was game, but another part of me refused. Deep inside of me, it felt like something angry was lurking. Supportive people have told me that there's no such thing as being bad at sex, there's only bad sex. Or incompatible sexual partners. And intellectually, I think I always understood that, but emotionally, I truly felt as though I was the exception. Something was wrong with me. Something was broken inside of me. Even after I came out, I was sure that some part of me was rotten. My body, haunted, unsafe, inhospitable, like an old house full of Shirley Jackson spirits. I gave up. I put up a sign, do not enter. My body was structurally unsound. Abandon all hope, blah, blah, blah. From a very early age, I felt condemned. During this period of my life, I used to break into an old abandoned cotton mill in Walberg, Texas with my friends. The mill was straight out of a horror movie, literally. Portions of it were used in the film as a filming location for the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not sure what happened to the mill that resulted in it shutting its doors or falling to rot, or why it was never torn down after all these years, but I suppose there's another story buried there, something about small towns and money and lost jobs. This was during my I'm not gay, I'm struggling with my sexuality phase. We can translate that to I still hook up with people, but then I cry and pray about it afterwards. I'd already come out once when I was 15, but I sort of lost the thread of that identity when I started hooking up with older men that I met in the AOL chat rooms. I wouldn't have sex with them, but that wasn't because they didn't try. I became an expert at the dodge, the weave, always offering an alternative until one day I got too scared. A man drove me too far from my home on a road I didn't recognize, and suddenly my mortality was very real. I put myself back in the closet, joined a youth church, and got super religious. I wouldn't even attempt to have penetrative sex until I was 22 years old. I was 19 at the time of this story, living in Austin, performing with a Christian screamo band. Then called The Kirby, later called Widows and Orphans, and still on Spotify. We can talk about it. It was a whole moment. Think 2005. Think cheap flat irons caked in hair products. Think Lucky Strike cigarettes, lip rings, women's jeans. I'm sure this era is conjuring some cringeworthy images in your mind. I would recommend you just apply them all. Skipping that part. This is still an editing. One night, the guitar player and I used to break into this. Basically, it's the thing. We used to break in all the time. And you know what? Fuck it. It's not sexy. It just feels like there's too much. Below the main machine unit, there was a stone stairwell that went down to a service basement where during our first visit to the mill, we discovered a torn and soiled mattress that seemed to be covered in blood. It's not sexy, it's not. We were surprisingly undeterred. Even though a bloody mattress is maybe number one on the list of murder and nearby red flags. We would come back to the mill often sporting flashlights and Lone Star beer, in my opinion, the best of the cheap beers, and just hang around. We had discovered our own shabby chic condemned clubhouse. One night, the guitar player and I went to the cotton mill in Walberg alone. You know, the one I was in love with. Just the two of us with our flashlights and Lone Star. It was a date. I know that it wasn't a date, but it like had the trappings of a date, or you know, I was in the closet and I had not experienced a date to that point in my life, so I was like, is this it? We returned to the mill many times over the years with more people without incident, but on this particular mill trip, something happened. We parked our car at the left of the building behind some overgrown grass where we knew it wouldn't be seen from the road. The guitar player and I walked up the loading drive with our flashlights off to further hide our presence. We had never been caught sneaking into the mill before, and we liked to believe it was because of our expert espionage skills. I set our standard issue pack of tall boys and my flashlight on the chest-high cement loading dock and hoisted myself up. We had been there enough times that we were comfortable understanding the layout of the mill without much light. One piece I remember in particular was on like the wall. There was some graffiti that featured the words 7 lives were washed in the blood of the lamb. It was shabby chic, you know? I made a mistake in this laughs, so so I gotta hurry. As we entered the mill, we heard a noise. It wasn't the clink of chains or the wind that rustled the leaves and the tree limbs that had grown through the building. The sound was new and unnatural. It was a guttural and foreboding hiss that grew into a growl. The sound got louder when we shined our flashlights near the maintenance crawl space. Yeah, the same space with the blood mattress. Being the dumb, drunk, young people that we were, we decided to investigate further. As we got closer, the sound intensified. We stepped through the threshold of a large wrought iron gate that separated the front section of the mill from the mechanical rear. Then suddenly, something huge and angry rose up out of the ground with a flurry of darkness and motion. The nightmare creature landed on the iron grating around the machinery with a metallic thud and bellowed a blood-curdling screech at us with its wings wide and imposing. It ran at us, flapping its massive 5.5-foot wings, the sound of its talons clanging against the hard, rusting floor, its howl reverberating off the steel metal structure around us. We screamed and scrambled together behind the iron gate we had passed through and slammed it closed, just as the demon flew up to face height to rip out our eyes. We fell to the ground and held the gate closed with our feet as the monster attacked. Eventually, after what seemed like an hour, but probably only amounted to like a minute, the beast flew up through the hole in the roof, and we were left dirty, breathless, holding each other, bruised on the ground. We had just encountered an angry black vulture. We had disturbed its nest in the middle of the night. I find myself thinking about this vulture a lot. Its screeching would come to mind when I thought of the guitar player and the one time we did actually kiss in a hotel room. The time I knew whenever he was just trying it because he cared about me. Not in the way that I was hoping. I would think about this vulture when I would try to have sex with future partners, when I would feel something angry and defensive rising up inside me. I would think about those men too, the men who I used to meet in AOL chat rooms, the men who I had to repeatedly tell my boundaries to, even though I was just learning what boundaries were. The men who I would offer alternatives to, hoping that it would be enough to make them feel good, to make me feel real, to give my body value. The vulture was just protecting its home. It had nested in the decaying mill and it felt responsible for keeping away predators. It had no way of knowing what we intended to do, what kind of danger we posed. It just knew that it was scared, that maybe we wanted to take something away. It was afraid that we wanted to kill something that couldn't be brought back. I lived with this vulture inside the condemned wreck of my body for years. I convinced myself that it would always be there, screaming, refusing to let anyone enter. Until one day it was gone. Okay, fine, no, that was not true. That's sort of an oversimplification to disservice to the truth. The real answer, the longer answer, did this movie really need to be 2 hours long answer is. I spent well over a decade learning to trust people with my body, and I still struggle with it today. Too many men had tried to use me at too young an age, and no one had been able to teach me how to have a queer body in the first place. Learning to let my guard down involved dozens upon dozens of attempts and a lot of disappointment. The first thing I had to understand was that I wouldn't break with someone inside me. Despite all my fears of the dismantled and decrepit interior structure of my body, I actually share very little in common with the old forgotten mill I explored in my youth. I was just nervous and hadn't had an opportunity to feel strong yet. Then it was a matter of finding sexual partners who knew how to read someone's body. I feel like pornography had convinced some generations of men that every body is ready and waiting for them to dive into. And that is entirely and unequivocally not the case. I was low-key traumatized despite talking a big game, and that needed to be taken into account when trying to engage with sexual activity. Sometimes during sex, I would feel myself getting scared and angry and defensive. Some sort of baggage from fight or flight response was lingering in my subconscious, a large culture, if you will. Sometimes during sex, I would suddenly need to stop everything and relax. Sometimes I continued even though I felt tears boiling behind my eyes. Despite often feeling hopeless, I would always come back for another round of experimentation, and finally, at the age of 30, I was more or less fully able to let someone in. I know now that I was never condemned. I was just in an extended state of being remodeled. My body, or more importantly my mind, is in a good state now, though I'm still planning future refurbishments. The vulture has since retired and spends most of its time traveling. It still shows up every once in a while to water the plants, but usually it's out on a Royal Caribbean cruise, or backpacking through Europe. Maybe the metaphor is dissolving. What to say is that the vulture lived inside me for a reason, but over time and with support from good folks, those reasons changed. It took me a long time to feel like my body was mine again after a lifetime of feeling unstable, unsafe, and afraid. I kept trying, and eventually I found a power in my body that I never knew I had before. I discovered just how sturdy I am. The vulture has moved on. My body isn't a haunted mill. It never really was. It's a cute brownstone with good bones. To be real with you, it's actually kind of fancy. The initial title for that piece was The Old Vulture That Lives in My Asshole. Which I was told would be hard to get published. But that is the subtitle. You can find me at michealfoulk.com. I post like everything I get published on there, as well as stuff that they don't publish elsewhere. It's Micheal because my parents, I don't know. I've got Venmo. Greetings from Queer Mountain is the first Tuesday of every month at Temescal Brewing. And if it sounds like something that you might want to participate in, it's basically like a moth, but only gay people. But please reach out to me, and Maggie knows how to get a hold of me. And this was so lovely. Thank you so much.